you so much. Good morning. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning. I'm with Balto Software, so we're actually just up on 7. We're an Arts Grants recipient, and we're going to be talking a little bit about AI, so super relevant to what's going on here. So we'll get started right away. Again, like I said, my name's Tim. I'm with Balto. It's an AI conversation solution. So essentially, if you can all see the screen there, Balto helps sales reps close as much business as humanly possible. So we'll get into more of the details, but just from a high level to orient you a little bit to what Balto is, it understands conversations as they happen, and then actually in the moment will visually prompt call center agents, sales reps, customer service reps to save the call and prevent mistakes before they happen. So let's dive on in. So what is exactly the problem that we're looking at, and the problem that our founders are looking to tackle here is call center reps spend 4 to 6 weeks in classroom training. So a lot of times they either do big class hires, there's an attrition problem which we'll talk more about, but they do these big classroom hires, they do the training, it takes 4 to 6 weeks, and then after that they forget 59% of the training within the first week. So when you think about it, a lot of times it's super difficult to remember every single little nuance to a conversation. And so a new call center rep, maybe they don't have previous experience, and they're on the phones, they get in a high pressure situation, maybe they're asked a question, and they're not sure how to respond. And part of that goes to the 59%, they're forgetting that. So management has to spend a ton of time going back over the same things again and again. So again, call centers have 100% attrition year over year. And a lot of times what we hear on the phones is it's just part of the industry. A lot of times it's just going to be constant movement. You have the bottom 10%, a lot of times they want to let them go and fill them back in, which just perpetuates the training problem and the coaching problem, and it gets worse and worse. And then call centers have sales teams that have hundreds of reps just cowboying it, and you see the little graphic on the left-hand side. If you know what movie that's from, that's fantastic. I grew up watching it, so it's great. But essentially, reps are doing their own thing. And if they're doing well, a lot of times they're left to cowboy it, but we don't know why they're doing well. What about the conversation is successful? What about it is different from the lower performing reps? And if they're not doing well and still not following some of the consistencies that management wants them to, how do we fix that? We have no lens to see what's going to make it better. And then they lose a lot of calls for completely preventable reasons. Simple mistakes. It could be things like filler words, like, kind of, talking too fast. Those things that are really easily correctable that just happen in the moment. So there's no way for sales organizations to have consistently, excellent sales conversations, and 1 out of 2 are lost for totally preventable reasons. If they would have known the answer to the right objection or remembered it in the moment, if they would have given the strong ask for the sale on the call, if they would have been knowledgeable and lowered those average handle times, a lot of things can be totally solved for totally preventable reasons. They're desperate to cure this pain. So this problem, I would say, is nothing especially new. And the solutions that have been traditionally deployed to solve it are right here. So whisper mode, if you're familiar with that, you're on a call, if you're the rep, and your manager kind of barges into the call and then is whispering to you, almost like you're at a news desk, what to say. Super distracting. And it's really, it can fluster you on the call, and you're trying to listen to the person, you're trying to listen to your manager, and you're not paying attention. And active listening, as we all know, is so important. We've all been on a terrible cold call or a terrible conversation when you're calling to try to get answers, and if someone's not attentive to you, it totally kills the experience. So whisper mode is super tough. Post-call analytics, you're looking at all the information after the fact. You're looking at the diagnosis after the fact, and it's left to management to go solve that problem. And that call that you're learning from, it's already lost, and you may never get it back. Some of the customers that we work with, actually, the repeat customers are huge. So if that first call and that first impression is terrible, they're never coming back. So making sure that we can save it at the moment, we'll get into it a little bit later, but post-call is tough. Also, listening to hours and hours of call recordings, no manager has the bandwidth to do it, and it's not something that's actually really enjoyable. A few managers like digging through the call recordings and where to coach, but they can't do it for everybody. It's not scalable. And then the last one, sales coaching. It's difficult. We saw how they forget, but also, what if reps are struggling in different areas? How many one-on-ones can they do in a week? What if they want to do a group training session? Is it focused on everybody? Do you have people tuning out? There's a lot more effective ways that we can tackle this problem. And that is Balto. So the big difference here is the real-time guidance with reps in the moment, just faster than Alexa essentially. And on the right-hand side, you see the example of a budget objection. So it's in a sales call, and someone says, I don't know, this sounds kind of expensive. Maybe someone called me asking to install hardwood floors, and I say, I don't know, I really need to get my floors done, but it sounds super expensive. the budget objection would pop up, prompting the rep on the other side of the phone exactly how to tackle that. And not only that, you see, and we'll get into this in a minute too, but this, that's filled in. So by the audio, management can tell, given that this objection fired, how did my agents handle that? Did they handle it the way I wanted them to, or did they not? So now we're giving coaches, a great lens into what's exactly happening on 100% of their calls. Continual reinforcement. We're looking to form habits. We want to support the rep in the moment. We want them to focus on the conversation. We don't want them to be distracted. We want to form those key habits, and we do that time and time again to have the best practices on every single call. And then again, as I mentioned, management gets analytics on the back end. What's working well? How many times when they give the budget objection does that result in a successful call? How many times doesn't? Is it being used? So much information that they can use to completely revolutionize the way their conversations are being held. So, why does real-time actually beat post-call? I'll go into the post-call first. So, like I mentioned, it detects the mistakes after they're already lost. So we're not going to the source, we're going to after the fact, and now it's lost. The burden is on the management to change the behaviors, which they're not great at, and a lot of reps aren't going to retain anyway. And it's super time-consuming. Coaching happens when managers listen to calls, which is less than 2% of the time. I was on a call yesterday, and they just said we don't have enough bandwidth to listen to more than 2 calls per rep per week, and they're making more than 30. So the risk there is what's happening on those calls you're not getting to. Is it low quality? Is it something worse? Is it loss in sales? And they don't know what they don't know, and it's a big problem. With Balto, we prevent mistakes before they happen. If you're saying something in the moment, you can go back and correct it. You can change course. You can handle those tough objections or off-the-wall questions with ease because you have what you need in the moment. Again, it improves their behaviors, and you're getting that coaching. You're having what your manager would say, maybe in a whisper, in a much more, digestible way that you can actually relate to on the conversation through the visual prompts. Here's a couple of reviews that we've had from G2. Easy and fast results. Real time is the best time. One of the things we really pride ourselves on is an agent-first experience, making sure that it's clean, it's easy, and it's focused on what the agent needs, and then we present to the manager. Something different than actually we kind of come across in our competitors, but taking that user experience on the desktop super seriously and making sure that their feedback is super important, and that's what we use to inform how Balto is shaped. Okay, just one more. Balto Wonders review. So what do you like best? So impressed that it's intelligent and reacts just like a human being. So Balto is extremely smart, extremely accurate, and that's why now is somewhat of the time that we see some traction. It's because the AI has actually really caught up. We've also seen a lot of big companies start to switch phone systems to the cloud, which makes the integration super simple. So that's why now has been a really exciting time. And that's it. That's all the slides that we have. And I guess I would just say, so what we're doing is really trying to perfect the conversations in almost any vertical you can think of to make sure that those keystone habits are formed every single time. And I guess we'll open it now to Q&A.
Yeah. All right, and please wait for the okay, holy cow. So enthusiastic arm. Please wait for the microphone so that the camera can hear you.
So I can keep it down.
Great presentation.
Thank you so much.
35, 40 years of sales experience, and I don't use the phone anymore, I use email. So in the future, are you guys thinking about doing something with email? Because I do all my warm calls or cold calls through email.
Yeah, so one of the things we hear all the time is, and maybe you've heard this as well, is like omni-channel. It's a big buzzword. Everything is omni-channel. Can you do AI everywhere? Email, chat, bots, everything. It's one of the things I think that we would consider. One of the ways we really inform the product information, the product roadmap, is from our customers. So if it's something that a lot of customers are saying, hey, this would be super impactful, odds are we'll probably do it.
What is the success rate of a call center?
Like the overall success rate in
of a call center beforehand and afterwards, because I'm thinking like I hang up or say, I'm sorry, I'm not interested to every caller I get. I don't think I've ever accepted any type of phone solicitation.
Sure.
And so what is the success rate of phone call centers?
Yeah, we get super specific with the challenge we're trying to solve. So it depends on the nature of their conversation. So if that call center is maybe going for a higher customer experience, there's different ways to rate that. Maybe they want a better average handle time, a better NPS score, net promoter score. If it's sales, one of the key examples that you made me think of is we have a foreign customer. That example was somewhat real. People call in to cancel. and they were having a really rough time convincing people to not cancel. They have a dedicated sales team. So with Balto, we had them ask discovery questions, and their success rate actually went up by 18%. Because instead of getting argumentative and trying to, and talk them out of canceling, they would say, I can totally help you with that. Other than, the issue you're calling about, which I can help with, how was your overall experience? And they'd say, it was great, I liked my rep, I like this, I just don't like the color I picked out on my floor. Oh, if I swap that out for you, would you be willing to keep it? Yeah, no problem. And so just something that simple actually led to an 18% success rate in a sales capacity.
Yeah, but they're already pre-established clients.
These were clients that had bought floors that were calling in to cancel them, yes.
Gotcha.
And that's just one example, but there are, we get super specific what the challenge we're trying to solve, and then we'll get a baseline beforehand and then measure that afterwards. So the success rate can kind of depend on the metrics of that specific call center.
So you're working with call centers now, so where do you see this going? Is this something that can be translatable to, dispatchers or, other types of sectors?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we have contact centers in all sorts of different verticals, from collections, customer service, sales, a little bit of both, technical support. So really anywhere. We do see actually more traction in the last couple months with almost B2B. Having a half-hour sales conversation, and maybe you have a certain sales methodology that you're trying to implement, and it can be really tough for those reps to follow that structure. So having that and having actually Balto prompt you on where you're at in the sales process with them and so forth. So contact centers, emergency centers, we have a few customers already who do like medical collections, and they're trying to create a great patient experience. So we're already starting to see some of that a little bit.
Next question. I'm going to take one question. It does seem like actually emergency 911 could actually use this.
It could. I wonder if one of the things that might come up there is, do they have a lot of turnover in that type of position? Are those people more senior? One of the big concerns that we'll normally tackle throughout our sales process with someone is, they'll say, well, what about my most experienced reps? Why would they need Balto? It seems like a training tool. And our response to that is, everyone can get better in some capacity. Anyone. Whether it's a conversation skill, showing more empathy, active listening, whatever it can be, there's some nuance that almost anyone could, improve upon. But yeah, that's a really good point that I don't know if we've tackled yet. 911.
What is the implementation time in general?
In general, 2 to 5 weeks.
2 to 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then from a training perspective with call center reps, are you guys involved with that, or is it a trainer, or how do you guys?
Yeah, great question. So we do train the reps. So we train, we'll normally do classes. It's a half-hour session. We'll let them know what's going on, and then we do a more in-depth training with managers to create the feedback loops, so they know how to look at the data, how to use that, because they can edit their entire playbook, which is what we call it, all their content themselves. So we want to make sure they get a good handle on that. But yeah, 2 to 5 weeks, we're good to go.
So they were talking about the 911 centers, but how would the technology need to change in order to do that, or say suicide prevention call centers? Something that's a complete switch from maybe more B to C, if you will, than B to B. How would the technology have to transition?
Change from B2B to B2C?
Yeah. Or, in that sense.
So, yeah, it's super adaptable in a sense that we only build what's going to be understood from Balto based on their conversation scripting and training they provide us. So it's almost like every customer gets a blank slate. We have templates, but we want them to be pretty customized. You can already, the way it works is phrase matching, so you can say the words, it doesn't have to be verbatim, but even more loose than that, you could just say, we want them to say this word, we don't care how they frame the sentence, but we just want them to say this word or phrase. So I would say it already almost exists, and we have a lot of B2C customers that do cold call, outbound calls, transactional sales on the phone. But I would just say, we would just continue to make sure that Balto understands as many words as possible, the actual AI component, and then that we would be super specific in their playbook build out.
This is an exploratory question.
Sure.
So you're Mark, correct? You're the CEO?
I'm Tim.
You're
No,
Tim.
I'm not. Yeah. Mark's a good friend, but yeah, I'm Tim.
Okay. So my supposition is that you live, eat, and breathe this data. You're very familiar with what's going on. And so the question is, how has it changed your behavior to know the nuances of sales conversation? So in this pitch, Have you already judged yourself and you could imagine what Balto's telling you that you've done?
You know what? Super insightful. Actually, yes. So when I was doing the pitch, talking about how Balto can notify you from filler words, I was already immediately aware of how many times I've said like or kind of or And then when we're doing demos, and I'm demoing Balto through like a Zoom meeting, it's actually coaching me to some degree, like in front of whoever I'm presenting to. And I get dinged for talk time as far as talk speed every single time. So I'm already like acutely aware of, I'm probably talking way too fast. It works out well for the demo because it gets that to trigger, and I'm like, see, and then it works, but it's also actually true. And then the talk time is one where it'll say, hey, you've been talking 70% of the time, you need to turn it back over with a question. But that's a great point, and it's impacted the way I have conversations, I would say not only in a sales capacity with Balto, but even outside of that, of having conversations and realizing, I've been monologuing this whole time, I should ask how they're doing. So it does have tons of different things that bled into,
And how have your sales gone so far? And who would you say is your best client, and whom are you looking to find?
Yeah, so it's hard to pinpoint the best client. We have customers, as I mentioned, in all sorts of different verticals. I think one of the most intriguing that has found great value is the BPOs, so big contact centers that run campaigns for other companies because they have to be agile, because agents do so many things, they're almost universal. So one day they might be on a Hyundai campaign, the next they're doing Verizon collections, or they're doing so many different things and have to have so many different skill sets that something like Balto can really help them cut that ramp time and understand that quickly. That's one of the ones that I think would be most compelling, but we have customers that are large as 1,200 agents, as small as under 10, and it just really impacts, it's really cool how the conversations can be nuanced in that way.
Do you use Grammarly?
Yes.
Okay, that's how basically you could really stealth your way into the B2C market.
Yeah, that's a great thought. And when he was asking about email, that was my first thought. It was like, how could we use AI for email or chat and then have Balto there? We've even like joked around of having like the Google Glass. You could have it and you're having like person-to-person interactions, But yeah, that's a great thought.
Or like a Snapchat plugin.
Yeah, right? Instagram, anything. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was thinking this would be great if I had when I was dating. But
Saving a lot of heartache.
Yeah, that's right.
Every guy.
pretty much. Guys sending texts and that kind of stuff. That would be really helpful for a lot of idiots.
A super hilarious example is we have a customer and in a contact center, agent receives a call. It's not a normal call, it's his girlfriend to break up with him, and Balto's like trying to help him overcome the objections. It wasn't successful, unfortunately, but true story, yeah.
Kind of along those lines, what happens when Balto encounters something it's never happened before? And is there because it happens in customer service all the time, you call and you get a robo and you want to talk to an agent because what you need is not on the list. So what does Balto do with that?
So what we found is most of the time we can catch that in the playbook build out with the customer and they know most of the situations. And we can identify if there's words Balto just hasn't learned yet. So one of our customers is in the pharmaceuticals, and they have words that Balto would never understand because they're crazy long, names of drugs. And so we were able to train it to learn those names. But in that case, we would basically train our AI library. It takes about maybe 2 weeks or less for Balto to learn those types of situations. But the key there is hopefully identify it beforehand. But if not, we have the data to look at it and plug it in as soon as possible.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
You guys are one of the really mature companies in the startup ecosystem. Can you talk a little bit about just like organizations that have impacted your growth?
Or like impacted the growth from what standpoint?
Like T-Rex or just the different parts of the ecosystem that has really helped you guys kind of really grow just as a company overall?
Yeah, absolutely. We're right up on 7. So being a part of T-Rex, I think, has been huge. I know that we just brought in a big hiring class, around 7 people. Venture for America was where we found a lot of our applicants. And then myself, Chris Contes, and Mark Bernstein actually all work together at Top Ops, another startup in the St. Louis ecosystem, where we learned a lot of how to do the startup grind and what to do in certain situations, how to figure things out. So I would say, those three main things have been super impactful. And then of course, being such a tight-knit group in St. Louis tech startup especially, everyone is almost always willing to lend some thoughts on, hey, this is how we did it, and talk through it. So it's just been great and cool journey so far. Yeah.
I assume you've just been focused on English language right now, so are you gonna expand into Spanish or Mandarin? What's next?
Yeah, I think Spanish, probably in the 2-year time frame, loose 2-year time frame. Spanish is our #1 request, followed closely, I think, by Portuguese. But yeah, strictly English language. Any dialects or any accent of English, we're good with, which is great. But yeah, English right now and Spanish next.
Do you have integration options with other call center softwares?
Yeah, we do. So we have an open API, so we can plug into really anything that they want. It just depends on how they want to receive data or push it, how they want to integrate it. But essentially, I think as we continue to grow, it's going to be a lot more commonplace. Everyone wants the data in one place. They don't want to be logging into a lot of different places. As simple as better. So, but yeah, we've done that a couple times.
And then I assume you're a per user per month.
Per user per month SaaS model. Yep, got it.
Could you give us some idea of your sales and where you project them in a couple years?
As far as like revenue numbers?
Yeah.
It's going to be great, huge. Can't give specifics, but I will say this. In the last few months, we've tripled. So we're continuing to grow and add members to our team. The members that we did add are sales development reps. So a few of them are here this morning to drive that revenue, the ambitious goals that we have. So a big sales focus in the coming months and coming years.
Okay, way to answer without answering. All right, do we have any more questions? No? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much. I do have a card if you want one. Thank you so much.